Okay, so I've wanted to make this video for a while about software development and becoming a programmer. Um, I started out about 5 years ago, and right now my job title is a React TypeScript Node.js developer. I also use Redux, but I'm going to take a step back and we'll go back to where I kind of it all started. Um, when I was a kid, I obviously loved playing video games and I loved computers, but I never thought it would take me anywhere. And when I went to school, I really didn't have any passion to do anything. I hated school, I hated all subjects. I just was like, I don't really care. And when I left school, I became an electrician, and then I kind of didn't want to do it anymore. The hours were too long, and I just really didn't have any desire for it. So finally, I decided to, after traveling and taking drugs and doing all that cool shit, which isn't obviously cool. Don't fucking go out and take drugs. But I decided that I needed to get my life together. I had kids, and I really needed to find something that I wanted to be passionate about and that I actually liked and that I could be proud of. So I started learning how to code, and I started with Free Code Camp and tutorials. Some of the tutorials that I kind of used were Traversy Media, Programming with Mosh, CS Dojo, Coding Addict. There's a whole load of them, but they're all good. You should just check those out. But when I got into writing on code on Free Code Camp, it was really good. I mean, the learning process was pretty good, but I found that it didn't give me everything I really needed. So I downloaded like an IDE or a text editor, and I think VS Code is the one I'm using now, and that's kind of where things started to accelerate a little bit more. Um, I started doing more tutorials, which is good and bad, because doing tutorials you should be very careful because you can kind of get stuck in this rut, and your learning curve will diminish in some ways, and you won't excel. You need to really when you're building projects, you really need to try and build them on your own. And they don't have to be great big projects. They could be very small. Small projects are actually a lot better. You'll learn a lot more with small projects. The bigger projects that you start to build, they're good to showcase, but you're almost better off building smaller ones and showcasing them. Um, when when I built my first big project, it took me a lot of time. It took me days and days and days, and by the end of it, I felt like I really hadn't learned anything. But with the smaller projects, building a calculator or making like kind of like buttons that a counter or something like that is much more beneficial because you learn it and then you can go back, you can break it, and you can see where you broke it, and it's easy to fix. It's not so vast and massive. But to anyone starting out, I would now I know everyone could be doing something different, but this is for anyone who's doing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I can't really say much about the C programs or Python or anything like that. But if you're starting out with HTML and CSS, you really need to spend a little bit of time with it. I'd say 6 months is good, and then with JavaScript, well, you should never stop learning JavaScript. You're always going to need to keep that fresh in your mind. The reason why I wouldn't spend too much time with HTML and CSS is because a lot of that is now integrated into React, and you're going to be always using that. Or sorry, I say React, but I mean a lot of other frameworks. Now, I haven't used other frameworks. I'm only familiar with React, so I can't. I'm not going to be biased and say that React is the one you should use. You should use whichever one you want. I don't think that. Um, I don't think that any of them are bad, and don't get swallowed up by all the clickbait shit that's on the internet. If the only thing you should be really looking at is tutorials and learning, because the other stuff is just they're just trying to get you to look at their stuff on YouTube. But Angular, Vue, and all them, they're great too. But to get back to where I was saying is when with HTML and CSS, you shouldn't spend so much time with them. Generally, when you start at a job, there is a designer, and he's going to be doing all the design stuff. So that will give you more time to focus on things like JavaScript, and that is what you should do. You should still have, dip your feet in HTML and CSS a little bit, but for the most part, if you're coming up, I think JavaScript, you should put your heart and soul into it, and complete JavaScript. And then only when you really know it, I mean, you gotta really know a lot of it. Then I would say move over to a framework. But I started, building these smaller projects, and I still felt like I didn't know enough. I got kind of stuck in the whole tutorial thing. But the good thing was I was able to build these tutorials, break them, and kind of fix them. And I would really stress that you do that, because if you start out in a job, everything that you've learned will feel like it goes out the window. You'll only know kind of small parts of what you had learned. And when you do start out your job, it's going to be a huge shock. I mean, you're going to be thrusted into things that you feel like you've never seen before. Um, so I would honestly, yeah, build lots and lots and lots of projects. Go back and learn JavaScript. Don't just learn it and think, oh, I know it now. Go back and revisit it time and time again. And like I said, don't put too much time into the HTML and CSS. Really put your time into JavaScript. And then when you're ready, put your time into maybe one of the frameworks. And yeah, put all your effort into those. Um, you don't need to put, a lot of jobs need things like TypeScript now, and Redux. Yes, you need to learn those, but I wouldn't say you need to learn too much of TypeScript. Maybe just understand the fundamentals of it, and then really dive into Redux much later on. A lot of people say that they become programmers in 30 days, or 30 days, but in 6 months or 3 months or whatever. That's crazy. I don't know how anyone could do that. There's no way I could have done that. It's still to this day, and I'm telling you, I've been doing it for 5 years and 1 year on the job, and I still feel like I have so much to learn. Like I'm doing much better, but it is a struggle, and it is really hard. Coding is hard, and it really pisses me off that people go around saying, it's easy online. Maybe that's because they want people to, like, more people to learn it, but it's not fair, because for people like me who have to hear people say it's easy, it's kind of daunting, because it doesn't sell. It sells like almost like this kind of false narrative. But the one thing is, when I wanted to also say, is that if you're going to an interview, the thing I would say is, don't uh don't lie, or in the sense that, be honest. If you don't know something, if they ask you something you don't know, just be like, I don't know. I got my job the first time around, and I just was completely honest, and I went in with no thinking that I was perspective or any thoughts that I was going to get a job. I was just like, you know what, I'm purely here for the interview and the learning, and I ended up getting the job. And my boss is amazing. He's taught me so much, and I've learned so much. But another thing is that on the job, you're going to learn a lot about logic, and this is another thing I need to put forward to anyone who hasn't got a job yet. Logic is going to become a huge part of your coding, and logic is almost more important than the coding, because once you learn how to understand the logic and be like, right, I need to build this way. If this button does this and it makes this react, I need to find out why it's doing that, and then you can go in and then you can code it. There's no way you're going to be able to code your way through something. It doesn't really work like that. And if you start now to learn like how logic works, you're gonna learn so much more. I wish there was more people online that had said logic is really important. Maybe there is, and maybe I missed it. But I honestly think the one thing I can stress to you is, really try to learn logic and understand logic. Write it out, piece of paper. That's the best way to learn. Let's say the three things is, like, spend a lot of time with learning JavaScript. Really put your effort into that. Then move on to a framework. Don't feel like you have to quickly rush into it. Um, People will you'll get hired at a job if you even just know JavaScript inside and out, because there are jobs out there, and you will get them. The logic is another thing. Really learn the logic. And when it comes to and then when it comes to going and looking for a job, I would say try and get in with a startup. You're going to learn a lot more at a startup than you will at a bigger company. Bigger companies give you smaller amounts of work. It's a startup gives you much more, like, oh, they want to teach you more because they need to build you up. So startups are almost better in that regard. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm gonna leave it at that. Like I feel like that I've tried to squeeze too much in and too fast. But good luck, and I wish you the best. And I'm sorry that it was all over the place. I'm not used to making videos, so go easy on me in the comment section. But if you want to subscribe, subscribe. If you want to hit the like button, like it. If you don't want to like it, don't like it. At the end of the day, I don't really care. But yeah, have a good one and stay safe.